The early days of like, well, marketing's for sleazy salesmen. You're forcing people to do things they don't want to do. Oh, well, no, I don't need to do that. I'll just open the doors and I'll be swamped. Of course, that wasn't the case.
This week, we're joined by Russell Jolley, owner of Team CC, based in Bournemouth in the UK. We talk about mistakes Russell's made along the way in gym ownership.
First 3 years, I was busy, to be fair. I was the head strength and conditioning coach for Bournemouth Uni. That I was like 9 to 5 in there. And then I was running the gym even part of the time. It was busy, and it obviously didn't have then all of my energy in one place. It took 3 years until it could kind of replace my salary.
We discuss how Russell has built his business to consistent 30k months and the systems and processes he's used to get there.
Came to realise that if you could deliver, when I took that piece and then combined it with a marketing piece, then you are absolutely smashing it.
We also talk about all elements of Russell's business: marketing, sales, mindset, staff, but also including the perfect front end offer so Russell is profitable every time he gets a new customer through the door.
We're about 240-ish members, kind of all in, including your front ends. The price points, we've got 2 main price points. For the small group, that's between 200 and 300 a month. And then the sort of larger group is around 150 a month.
We hope you enjoy the episode. Russell, thank you for being with us today in the podcast studio. First of all, let's dive in. And if you can tell us the name of the business, where you're based, and the overall model, please.
Sure. So business is called Team CC, based in Bournemouth. We were in Poole and we moved to Bournemouth. Overall model is a bit of small group coaching, and then some sort of larger group, 12 to 15 group coaching. And it's strength and conditioning, with a bit more kind of some high rocks and bits in there as well.
So large group is 12 to 15 typically. And then how many is it for the small group?
Up to 6 to 1.
Okay, great. And how long have you had the gym for?
The Bournemouth site since January 19. The Poole one we first opened in October 2010.
What So you've been in business for 15 years, so a seasoned gym owner.
Yeah.
And was the model always this model, or what was the model when you first opened?
We were kind of very much in that like all athlete kind of vein. At that sort of time, I was a strength and conditioning coach at Bournemouth Uni as well. So I was kind of coming through that school of like Joe DeFranco, Eric Cressy, Westside Barbell, all those sort of American guys, and effectively I wanted to be one of the first ones of those in the UK. So warehouse gym, opened on a shoestring, a bit grimy, and very much open for, let's say, specific evenings, 3 hours at a time. Everyone's on personalized programs, arriving at different times. So no, it wasn't particularly refined or particularly successful.
Yeah, so it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the model you initially had was based on what you wanted to see in the gym, essentially.
Yeah, exactly right. Is what it was a bit like what I'd been coaching some of the sessions at the university, and it was like what I really wanted to be training myself, and what I thought would be the best for each individual, making sure they all had exactly what they needed, but not really, I guess, taking in the whole picture.
So very athletically focused, would you say? Is that the type of person you try to attract?
Yeah, big time. Like American footballers, rugby players, hockey, netball, that sort of thing. Like, sports specific people in their early 20s probably, because basically that's what I was. I was 24 and I was just trying to coach me, but there's not that many of them in pools.
And before we continue to talk about the earlier days demographic and model, I know we touched base on the name of the business and the model. Can you just tell me how many members you have and the price point as well?
Sure. So we're about 240-ish members, kind of all in, including your front ends.
Yeah.
The price points, we've got 2 main price points. For the small group, that's between 200 and 300 a month. And then the sort of larger group is around 150 a month.
And what's the cost of your front end offer? And what is your front end offer?
Sure. So 6 weeks broadly, that seems to be on average the most successful kind of time frame for us over the years. The small group's 449 for 6 weeks, and that's one-to-one initial meeting and goal setting, 3D body scan. We then want to see them 3 times a week if we can, 2 to 3 times a week over the 6 weeks, with some nutrition and sit downs if they need it. And then the larger group, again, 6 weeks, but we haven't until this point been doing the 3D scans, just partly for a value differentiation piece, and also a logistics behind you only starting a handful of people in the small group versus in the large group you're aiming to start bigger groups, 10, 15 people, maybe 20 at a time if you're doing a kind of a 3-week cohort type thing. So for them it's they could train up to 6 times a week. They still get nutrition and an accountability coach, but just we're going to try in the September intake adding in the 3D scan then.
And what is the rough revenue, monthly revenue numbers of the business?
We sit in the sort of low to mid 30s at the moment.
Okay, great. And we're going to return to your front end offer and discuss a few topics around that area. But I want to now circle back to where we were in terms of the early days of the business. I just wanted to make sure we kind of had the context of where the business is at now, a model, price point, and all that fun stuff. But you were working with athletes because that's what you wanted to do. And you said it earlier, it wasn't super successful to start off with?
No. I mean, the first 3 years I was busy, to be fair. I was the head strength and conditioning coach for Bournemouth Uni, which means that I was like 9 to 5. I was in there coaching their rugby, football, cricket, hockey, all their kind of varsity athletes. I was doing my masters in strength and conditioning part time, and then I was running the gym even part her time. So like it was busy, and it obviously didn't have then all of my energy in one place, and it was just sort of specific slots. So for 3 years, we just grew slowly, until it took 3 years until it could kind of replace my salary from the university, which was not a particularly good salary, as they weren't in that sort of time. And then so from 2013 onwards, I then went full time, and it grew a lot quicker, but it was still just rumbling along really for another couple of years until 2015 or 16 when I actually started to kind of embrace the marketing side. And that was, a big inflection point in the growth.
Because your demographic has now changed and evolved since having the gym. And there's a couple of reasons why you did that. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that there's just not many athletic people in the area of Bournemouth, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Trying to find 200 plus, people in their 20s who are like actively and meaningfully competing in sport, also in a position to invest a significant sum into their, strength and conditioning training on top of any money they might need to be spent on, subs at the club and all that sort of stuff. Like beyond sort of 25 of them, it got pretty difficult to meaningfully grow.
And looking back, if you could start over again, would you have just gone straight to what you started to do in 2016 in hindsight?
Yeah, 100%. Like it was so much more fun. It grows quicker. It's an easier sell. It's a great atmosphere to coach. And the industry has massively moved since 2010. We spent ages laboring trying to teach people like strength. There's this thing called strength and conditioning, and it's not bodybuilding and or just powerlifting, which is kind of basically that was it at that sort of time. And so it was a real hard sell back then, which was part of it. Whereas now the industry is familiar with the term. There's lots of gyms, so there's a more educated market as well. That mean that it's a much easier sell to create that group. And definitely just kind of go straight in with that now versus trying to go into individual ways.
But it's pretty common, the process that you went through, because most people that not most people, but a lot of people that will open up a gym, they will always go, I want to work with younger athletic people, and this is the vision that I have. And a lot of the time, that's where the problems arise in terms of picking the demographic within that marketplace, because every gym owner, just like yourself, doesn't have a huge population or marketplace to be able to get people in. And if you're just going to go for a very sub demographic, it's going to be really hard to find those people, but also hold on to them and actually grow the business to where you want it to get to. So going to 2016, what was the moment what happened where you decided to switch things up a bit?
I guess it wasn't exactly like a hard switch, but in that sort of 2013, 14, 15, it just started to, it dawned on me. I was listening to a Jason Ferrugia podcast actually back in the day, and he was talking about a program that he used to run, and is that we just get everyone in, they'd all be on the same, broadly the same program. We'd have, a great kind of friendly, competitive group that would motivate each other to train hard, that would hold each other accountable to come in 2 days later, and be in the sessions. So that was the kind of start of that transition. It was like, oh yeah, it's a bit crap if someone arrives at 5 o'clock and then the person that they could train with really well doesn't arrive till 5:40, and they're on, actually by the time I've written all their programs, they're kind of doing the same sort of thing and they've got the same sort of goals, but just because I've set this thing up poorly, they are not getting the best experience. They're just out of sync with each other, and then it's a nightmare to run the gym. Those is a squat rack free. We have 3 squat racks and 3 Olympic lifting platforms and an AstroTurf. So you've got someone that's got 8 sets of 3 snatches to do, and basically it was just a bit of a mess.
And so it wasn't actually just the demographic that was the problem. It was also the structure of programming, where because everyone had it individualized, it was just causing chaos on the gym floor.
Exactly. And you think that's a value point. You think that, I want the perfect program for me and you want the perfect program for you. And the only way to deliver that is like for it to be 100% specific to each person. But actually, when I sort of zoomed out on it and, looked at what we'd been doing for the last few years, I was like, no, like most of us, 80%, we want the same thing. So we can handle that individual 20%, or we can even just write off that individual 20% for a while. If you could deliver 80% of progress to 80% of people, then you are absolutely smashing it. So it was that sort of, let's put the value in the experience, the results, the fun, and not in, insanely detailed, specific parts of a program that your average person doesn't even notice anyway.
And so essentially you made the programming a lot simpler and more universal for everyone that came in?
Yeah, exactly right. That's it. So let's simplify to the big needle movers in terms of progress and fun and experience. Let's get a cohort of people training at the same time, in a specific session that with a start and an end that's run really well on the clock so that it's on time, everyone gets their quantified amount of work done in the session because it's nice and controlled. And, people can schedule it into their lives and they know that it's going to be them. And at the time, probably 5 or 6 or 7 other people that they get on well with. They know that 6 o'clock, I'm in the gym and I'm having a great time.
And did you also make a decision at that point to broaden the marketplace as well of who you're bringing in?
Yeah, exactly right. And one of the things I've always been sort of quite proud of is that, in fact, our slogan used to be, we build athletes. And in my mind, initially that had meant we sign up athletes. But actually, over the years, I realized no, we build them. So it doesn't matter where you start. Give us a year, 2 years, 3 years, you'll be an athlete, and we'll make that. And over the time, you kind of realize, actually, that's the best thing that we do is we take someone that maybe wasn't that confident in the gym, wasn't sure, was out of shape. They may or may not have done it before. And a year or two later, they're unrecognizable. They're confident in the gym. They do want to compete in things. It's part of their identity, but it wasn't, and now it is type thing. So it was like you realize that you've got to be sensible about your training methods. Obviously, you can't just go, well, let's give these super high end programs and stimulus to someone that's got a very low training age. But if you do it right, you can have a great time building, fantastic athletic people and be a really important part of their progression.
And this is when you started to see the real growth in the business from that moment?
So there was, when I took that piece and then combined it with a marketing piece, when those two things came together, it grew much quicker.
So what were your thoughts on marketing before, and then what happened and changed, or how did your thought process change about marketing?
I was like a standard, I guess, in the early days of marketing's for sleazy salesmen. It's you're selling snake oil, you're forcing people to do things they don't want to do. That was, I guess, when I was just coaching in my early 20s and stuff. That's kind of, oh, well, no, I don't need to do that. The facility will sell itself. The fact that I've got AstroTurf and squat racks and Ollie platforms, I'll just open the doors and I'll be swamped. Of course, that wasn't the case. And then it took a process, to be honest, of frustration, of not growing, to kind of think, actually, the lessons I need to learn now are in, well, how do I market in a way that doesn't feel like any of those negative things? And actually, when you do apply it, it's really fun because your gym grows, you get good people in. We know the product is good, so we're not selling snake oil. So actually, I came to realize that I'm letting the potential client down by not marketing, Because if I don't do it and they are marketed to by someone who is a snake oil salesman, then I've allowed them to go to this other schmuck. When actually, if I'd done, pulled my big boy pants up and actually learnt marketing and invested in it, I could have helped them genuinely and brought them into our system and done a great job. So then it became a little bit of like actually, I'm letting them down if I don't do it. So let's crack on and learn this thing and do this thing.
And to not market because of these competitors that were snake oil salesmen, you're actually letting them win.
Yeah.
If you're, I'm not going to market my services because these guys market and they're a bad product. Well, actually, that's all the more reason to market your own service, because if you back yourself, and something I say is, you're only a cheesy secondhand car salesman, or if you sell a crappy secondhand car. If you sell a really great product, then you should be proud to market it and enthusiastic to market it and shout about the results and the product that you have. And you should be able to do that with no guilt whatsoever. If you know that when people walk through your door and it's the right person, you're going to be able to potentially change their life. So was that a big mindset shift for you?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's exactly it. Like, if you know your thing's good, then why aren't you shouting about it? Like, make some noise about it.
And what was the marketing that you did in the earlier days? Did you do it by yourself or get help? What was it that you did back then?
So used to be a lot more into kind of email marketing. Got into Facebook ads. Yeah, Paul Mort was kind of, and John Latoc were two guys that I was kind of came into their sort of circles around that time, 2013 probably. I think I remember going to they did like the fitness entrepreneur boot camp, I think, something like that. It was, just a seminar weekend. I went there because Alan Cosgrove was there, who was a big guy in small group PT in the US at the time. And they introduced us to Facebook ads. They got Travis Jones in, from RBT in Australia, the Aussie gyms. And he literally, on stage, he had 1 hour, and it was like, this is a Facebook ad. Like, you click this button, and then you do that thing, and then you write this sort of thing in it, and you do that, and that was kind of where it started that sort of mid-teens, 2013, 14, 15, I think.
And you mentioned you got into email marketing. Is that something you still do on a regular basis?
Yes, yeah, I still do it. Like, I'm not as consistent as I was back then. I think I'd more of a individual tone that worked well for a specific audience. As the gym's grown and we have diversified, my personal tone probably just needs toning down a little bit. But yeah, we still do it. I still send emails out every week. It's still a valuable source of income in terms of nurturing new leads, but equally reigniting previous members. It's probably most valuable in that context, to be honest.
Yeah, and a big mistake a lot of gym owners make is when they think they need new clients, they think that the only way to that is new leads. So they have to do some fresh new marketing to bring some new leads. When the reality is that I guarantee for most gym owners listening to this that have been in business for a number of years, there's a database just sitting there that is gathering dust, that isn't being nurtured or spoken to. Whereas for you, these people are receiving communication every single week. And there's a reason why people don't like doing emails, and I would say because it's a little bit slower. It's a slower game. Not every email gets a new client, but have you noticed throughout your kind of consistency over the years the trickle effect that happens when you email?
Yeah, big time. That's it. Like, you've got to try and deliver some value. It's got to be kind of entertaining, ideally. If you can tell a story, that's great. So it's something that someone actually wants to read versus just everyone being a total sales pitch. And then the best sort of format is like you do that for a few emails, and then you do a more sort of targeted sales based one. Or we'll do a few times a year, we'll do kind of an ex-member reactivation where the idea is we'll send a completely no-brainer kind of offer that takes nothing really in terms of our time. They know us, so they can be confident just to click buy and buy it, and we just get a payment notification, and then we can follow up with them. Those kind of things just work really well.
What's the sort of offer that you would email old clients to? What's that no-brain offer?
So it'd normally be some kind of like taster or kind of, reactivation trial, 2 to 4 weeks long, half or less of the normal price of what that might be. I usually sort of coincide it with either like the Christmas bank holiday weekend type thing.
Yeah.
or other bank holiday weekends, just and you schedule a handful of emails, 3 or 4 emails, kind of over the weekend. With the buy it now link in it, just buy it now, and I'll call you on Tuesday when I'm back in the office.
Yeah.
We might get 7, ex members sign up for that. Sometimes you don't get many. This is the way it goes. But other times you get 7, and then they do it, and then 6 of them stay on a proper membership. A month later, and it was just the easiest thing you've ever done.
Well, to be able to send just an email and then suddenly get 6 new members signed back up into the gym with no additional marketing spend from the data you've already got is massive, because it's cost you nothing, and the ROI on that one email is huge. An offer that we do is for old clients would be, hey, come back and do our 21-day reset on us. All you have to do is put down a paid deposit, and you can have that back at the end or put it towards your future membership. And if you combined an offer like that, and I never like giving things away for free, so that paid deposit is a way to get skin in the game, but also it's to customers that have already paid you money. If you have that, and what I really like that you said is that you do it on bank holiday weekends. So people have a fun weekend, bank holiday Monday, or whatever it is, and then they feel like they need to get back on the wagon. So if you send that email during those periods of time, your response rate is probably going to be a lot higher, right?
Yeah, exactly right. That's my thought behind it. And to give it a little bit of a deliberate start and end, and just that you kind of want it to have some kind of reason why you're sending it now and not just at any other time, and why they need to act now and not just at any other time as well. So yeah, you're trying to match that sort of psychology of, I've splurged for a bit. If it's, this August bank holiday weekend coming up, towards the end of the summer, it's that a great time where people are starting to naturally think about it. Or over Christmas, obviously, that's an easy win as well, basically.
And I want to fast forward your journey to let's say post-COVID, because the gym was growing, everything was good, and then obviously that time happened. We're not going to dive into that because I think people were a bit bored of talking about that period of time. But then that was the time to kind of look to rebuild and grow the business again. Yeah. Did you take a dip in members beforehand? Or?
Yeah. And we actually, if you take the COVID specific element out of it, we can dump that to the side, as you said. But it converged with some other sides of our business. So in terms of, I had the pool gym from 2010, and my plan was to have lots of gyms. And so in 2018, I would have told you that the pool gym was full. I think looking back, it definitely wasn't. And I definitely had much more juice to squeeze out of that location. But I was all, keen to kind of blast on and get a second location. So we got the second location in Bournemouth with a view to keeping them both. And those being 2 of 3, 4, 5, 10, etc. And so we opened the Bournemouth location January 19. And so we were kind of growing, very aggressively trying to grow there, because the Bournemouth site was 2 or 3 times bigger, 10x more expensive, and I put a lot of money into that, and we were losing money every month. So, we were trying to aggressively grow, and then sort of lockdown hit. Then, of course, we had a bit of a dip in members and finances. And then end of 21 decided, well, the pool location, it was too close. We were forcing the members to choose between...
Too close to the Bournemouth location.
Yeah. So we were forcing the members to choose between 2 sites, which meant that we had 2 non-optimized sites. And then the pool site, the landlord wanted to double the rent, basically, which was not unrealistic because it was just so cheap. And there's loads of stuff I could go into about, that site and how I didn't optimize it. And I kind of got away with it because it was so cheap as a unit. But
so the business was successful, but there's almost a little bit of kind of like a unicorn like sprinkles over it in terms of the situation is unlikely to occur for other gym owners because you had a good setup, essentially.
Yeah, it was $1,000 a month all in.
Wow.
Yeah, rent, no rates, almost no utility bills. Like it was like 800 quid a month rent, and then a few bits and stuff in there. So it was so cheap, and that was for 2,500 square feet. So we could have 150 members in there, and with it being so cheap, you don't realize what actual prudent financial management is because you don't need to. So you can be fat on staff, way more coaches than you need. You're not really thinking about saving stuff. You're always just, we're growing. So, growth is expensive. So let's just throw loads of money at it and try and grow and grow and grow. And actually, once we got the Bournemouth site, which was then nearly 5,000 square feet and £6,000 a month, just rent and service charge, and 200 grand to kit out and build out and all that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, your monthly nut's enormous. You got 30 grand a month just to break even type thing, which at the time was just a huge sum for me. For my expectations of what it cost to run. So yeah, anyway, so we were kind of growing. Pool and Bournemouth, they were non-optimized. The pool rent, came up for renew at the end of 21. Decided actually, let's just shut this. Let's just try and move. It had been declining since we opened the Bournemouth gym. The pool one had been declining because they were so close, and the Bournemouth one was the headline one with all the newest and all the kit in it. So just decided that it was time to close that, and then almost like reset at the start of 2022 in Bournemouth. Really cut down on costs, on service offerings, number of programs and sessions and things that we were running to just get it back on track.
And so even at that time, you still had a lot of service offerings? Because I know you mentioned that in the early days, everything was specific. You made it broader, more universal. But even then, was there too many services that you had in? Yeah,
so effectively, you got two gyms. There was a male, a female, a small group, and a large group, and a little bit of PT in each one.
So the male-only sessions, female-only sessions, and then small group, large group, PT. So 5 services.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Broadly in each one. But if you look around the gym, you've got 4 coaches in, maybe coaching at any one time. But this coach has got 5 people when he should have 12. That coach has got 2 people when he should have 4. That coach has got 3 people when he should have 12. And
you've got all these staff on the floor, coaching a few people at one time, when actually they could all just be coached by 1 or 2 people.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. And again, when you look at the groups, it's like we all broadly there's there's 5 people there, there's 3 people there, there's 2 people there that pretty much want the same thing, and they absolutely could be coached by 1 coach, and they'd all be having a better time. So let's just do that, shall we? So yeah, 2022. Cut out kind of everything, just went back to 1 program, and and obviously then you can drastically save costs. Focus on delivering a really good experience in that one thing, make that something that's really valuable, and we could grow from that, and we did.
A key lesson on takeaway for me is simplicity scales.
Absolutely.
As in, every time you've had some struggles, there's a lot going on, and as soon as you strip back a lot of the fluff, the things that are causing confusion, then growth starts to take place again.
100%. Like, we've all only got finite resources, mental and financial and whatever. And as soon as you start splitting those, you don't get more. You don't get more resource. You don't get 200% of your cognitive power or energy or time to grow 2 different things. So you just slow the rate on both of them. So keeping it in one is going to be the quickest way to grow most often.
And circle back to you owned 1 gym, you went for 2, you wanted 3, 4, 5. In hindsight, what you mentioned that the first site wasn't optimized, and that was potentially hidden by the low expenses. So is it a case that if the expenses were higher, the systems would have been exposed for what they were potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. You would imagine I'd just have had to trip over that, stumbling block sooner. As it was pushed down the line a couple of years until I was in a facility that was much more expensive. But yeah, definitely, like, if I could have just had that lesson earlier, it might have been different.
And what was your motivation behind multiple sites? Because there's lots of people that, have 1 and then they want to go 2, 3, 4. There's some people that have like a really solid plan in place, and there's some people's motivations that I question. Like, is it the right reason? What was your reason looking back?
Ego, just you're young, dumb, and full of cum. You got loads of energy. Like, you just want to blast at all times, basically. So that was part of it. Like, I thought I had a good plan. I thought I was like on track and knew exactly what I was doing. There's definitely a piece of wanting. Having opened the gym in 2010, like, there's about 5 independent gyms, what felt like anyway, in the UK in 2010. You want to be the first one. You want to be the first one that's like leading the wave. Obviously, you want to make money. You want to be successful in business. So that was the kind of bigger thing. Actually, if I'd have sat back and parked that ego side and just said, Is this actually like really prudent? Do you know exactly what you're doing? Have you done your due diligence on what this is all going to cost and what life looks like when you're now split between lots of different locations? I would have made a different decision.
Well, yeah, because if you own 4 or 5 locations, you're not a gym owner in the same sense as if you're a single site operator. It's a very different job role.
Yeah.
And you're not, speaking with clients all the time or on the gym floor at all, really, if you want to do that job successfully. But the reason I asked that, because I had a feeling that ego was the answer. So thank you for being honest and open as well.
Come across that way.
Yeah. Because that's what a lot of people do. They want to go for more and more. And a lot of the time, it's not for them. It's actually for their peers around them. They want to be seen as someone that is doing big things. And there's an ego element there. But the reality is that most people could probably live the life that they want to live in terms of finance, in terms of freedom, lifestyle, just through one facility if they actually model it correctly. And looking back again at these 2 sites, what would you have done differently? Like, so you've still got site 1. With all your wisdom now, or the lessons you've learned, what would you have done differently? Would you even gone for site 2? Would you focus on 1? What do you think you would have done differently in hindsight?
Yeah, definitely wouldn't have gone for the site 2 that I went into. I tripped over a lot of things there that, looking back, I just shouldn't have done if I'd really, again, been prudent about it. So I probably would have still maybe gone down the multiple site route, but I would have just been much more hard on myself on exactly what is the repeatable model that we're going for, and not got distracted by, again, going like much bigger and all that sort of things. Like, actually, the repeatable model might have been 2,500 square feet in a warehouse, slightly out of town, keeping the cost down. But before even that step, I would have spent longer refining the product and ensuring profitability, consistent profitability in site 1, so that you had real cash in the bank.
And something you were talking about the different services you'd offered, and also the product being refined. So you had 5 types of sessions in location 1, and then you opened up another 5 type of sessions in location 2. So you got 2 locations, but 10 different services that are running at the same time. So it's actually a huge amount when you really look at it like that. And you look at the reason why, let's say, McDonald's is such a scalable franchise, and I'm not sure if you've seen the film. It's like, if you're an entrepreneur, watch. It's the film about how McDonald's started. I can't remember the name, but look it up. But basically, they just run. The Founder, that's it. It's called The Founder. Any entrepreneur or gym owner watch that. It's a great film. But it just talks about how the system is so precise in delivering the product, and that's why they were able to scale site after site. But your product was nothing like that, essentially. It was multiple things running at the same time. Yeah. Then when it went into number 2, it sounds like things started to break, essentially.
Yeah, there's just too many variables. Like, if you're slightly inefficient in your timetable, in one site, you've got coaches that are hired in on full-time contracts, but only delivering, let's say, 20 hours of coaching a week. In a single site where the other costs are low, that fact gets lost, or it's not. It doesn't seem to be a meaningful factor as a challenge. But then when you put it in a second site, you're now doubling the size of that problem. So yeah, all of a sudden that's now a meaningful problem. But you've created you've doubled the size of the problem because you haven't sort of addressed it in your first site, basically. So yeah, you create a bit of a monster that you've got to try and tackle.
And so you pull down, you trim down the services to just large group and small group?
Just large group.
Okay, just large group. And then you start to focus on the rebuild. How many clients are you at that point in time?
Oh, good question. Probably maybe 195, I think, in total from taking 2 gyms. We lost half of the pool members that were just geographically the wrong side. So the other half kind of stayed with us. So, but yeah, like we were, coming out of the lockdowns, less than 100, I reckon.
Was it a pretty stressful time for you?
It's awful.
How do you, as an entrepreneur, gym owner, deal with that stress?
I went camping a lot. Bought an old camper van in lockdown that saved many aspects of my family life and, mentality, basically. So, outside of the gym, it was just go out and do that. In the gym, it was really shortened my time horizon in terms of I couldn't think about anything long term. I just didn't have the bandwidth, the energy to plan events, to do anything long term. It was literally like, just today. I just need to win today. And like, what are the wins for today? It's coach the members that are in front of me in the sessions and make sure they're having a good time. If they're having a good time, I'm having a good time. And, and for those kind of windows throughout the day, you could, put on a bit of a performance and have fun with those members.
So from that stress point of view, it sounds like what you did is take yourself out of the business, as in like, I'm going to go away, and not, because a lot of people, and I'm sure you still did this, will work very, very hard in their business every single day, but you made effort to actually take a couple of days out to just get away.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely. Like the weekend. So I'd coach Saturday morning. I live on the South Coast. So in terms of the weather's as good as it's going to get in the UK. So throughout the year, from pretty much April to October, Saturday midday, I get home. If the weather's sunny, it's like, right, we're going camping. Just call up a campsite nearby, load up the van, off we go for one night. We'd be back home again by 2 p.m. the next day, 2 p.m. on Sunday. But that 24 hours out of life, out of the normal humdrum and everything, was just incredible. It was a great way to spend time, a great way to reset and refresh for Monday, basically.
So actually the key is, for a lot of people that maybe are in a stressful situation, is logically you think you just got to work more, right? But actually having that brief period of time out of the business was able to help you to go back in and continue to work and not get super burnt out.
Yeah, big time. Because that's it. The burnt out, just being an angry man, it's not a good spot. It's not where you want to be. So that allowed me to be a better dad, better husband, better business owner, basically. So yeah, absolutely.
And at this point in time, 100 members or so, £6,000 for the rent and services. Was the business losing money, breaking even? Was it?
We'd been losing money since the end of 18, early 19. The whole time we were growing the Bournemouth gym, it looked like we were doing amazing. We opened by May in 19. We had 150 members in the Bournemouth gym, but we're still losing money all the way through. Like, we were about to make profit, and then lockdown. But obviously lockdown helped with all the kind of grants and bits and bats, kind of got us through. So yeah, effectively, I think probably, by the time we'd reorganised and pulled the members over from Pool, actually it was now and breaking even, basically. Kind of the situation wasn't getting worse. And we could move into getting better, basically.
And was that when you came? Was it 2022? You came to us?
Yeah. So
have I got that like chronologically correct in terms of the rebuild, change the model, and that's when you got help with us?
Yeah. So at that point, when we think about like bandwidth, mental energy, that sort of thing, I just didn't have the mental energy to do all the ads myself. I had been doing them broadly myself for 5 years. I knew how to do them. I knew the structure. I knew bits, and I kind of knew what it looked like. But actually, I just didn't have that energy. I just needed someone to say, "Here's an ad that's going to work. Make it like this. Do this thing. And here's like an update on your sales process as well. Do this." And so it was just. At that point, like I said, it was just a strategic move. Obviously, I could have done with saving the money, but it was well worth the investment to take that mental burden off and just know you were going to do something that works.
Well, I think that's interesting. You said I could have saved the money, and you mentioned it there, you could have saved the money. Like, why not?
Well, I guess you sometimes have moments of clarity where you're like, well, I could save a fixed, relatively small fee in the grand scheme of things. But that might cost me actually a really big return. And I'm sick of trying to, get that return myself. I was sick of like having to redo ads like every week because they were flopping a bit, like, because for whatever reason they weren't taking off that time, and having to redo it all myself. I was like, I'd much rather just invest a bit of money knowing that the potential returns are massive compared to the actual cost,
the opportunity cost. And I think that you articulated that so well, that some people will be like, "Oh, I'm going to save this money," but actually, what does that saving potentially cost you in opportunity cost? And the answer for many people is tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds if you look in the long run. And now the business is, so you're at 100 or so, you're now at 240 within that time. So the business has well over doubled, I guess, within that time, which is amazing. But we're not going to talk too much about that side of things. I want to talk about your front end offer. So obviously you came to us, you got the leads, helped with sales, and we'll talk about sales as well. But what was your first front end offer? This might have been before us, but this is when you kind of were starting to do the build back, let's say. What was the first front end offer you had?
We tried lots of different ones. The first one actually was probably quite punchy because it was 12 weeks. The very first one was 12 weeks, 149. Then I got some help from a business mentor, and then it was like 12 weeks, 499. And we've been at every time, domain, and price point in between that. Experimented with all of them over the years, basically.
And there was one you did before that wasn't like a time front end offer. Was there one you told me earlier? I think it was like a couple of weeks for.
Yeah.
What was that one?
Yeah. So we trialed, coming out of lockdown, trialing different things to see what doesn't take a lot of time from me. So trialed kind of Facebook ads to website and Google ads to website, like £10 2-week taster, basically. The idea being it would be a total no-brainer for someone to see it, to Google gym in Bournemouth or whatever, or see the ad, sign up straight away, and then after the 2-week taster, auto roll onto 149 a month. It didn't work.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think what you said to me is that it took just as much effort to get someone in on a £10 offer than it did on a £150 offer or even more of what you say now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what ended up happening was we weren't getting that kind of ad straight to website, straight to sign up, and then they just turn up in the gym on Monday. We were having to do ad still to phone call. So you still have to do a 20-minute, you're still dialing leads. You still have to do a 20-minute phone call. And they still would, if they knew that they would ask, obviously, well, what's the price after 149? And so you'd still not sign up more than now when we're at sort of 349 and 449 for the 6 weeks. We don't sign up any less at those price points than we did at a tenner. Yeah. So, but obviously your potential upside is colossal.
Yeah, and there's a number of kind of cons to, pros and cons, and there's a number of cons to this process. So number one is that just because it's a low price, people probably aren't going to put their payment information into the internet of a brand they maybe don't have a super high level of know, like, and trust factor to. But they're not just going to see an ad and buy straight away. And number two is that what they're purchasing, if they did purchase, is a very low barrier offer, and it's very different to the one that you want to get them on. It's 10 to 150. It's a huge jump. So people that may sign up for this just aren't going to be a good fit for this, and it's always a means to the back end. And then the third point is that actually people weren't signing up, so you still had to have a conversation, get them in the gym, get them signed up. So the time and energy is exactly the same. And I see so many gyms, they do 7 days at £7 or something similar. And it does bring volume in leads, but ultimately the sales process is going to be very similar in terms of time, but it would be just selling someone into a higher ticket offer, essentially. And then you're going to make more money for your time. So really, it's a bit of a non-brainer, really, right?
Yeah, exactly right. You get someone that is much more comfortable at the price point, who's much more likely to stay with you long term. When someone invests a significant amount of cash, they're more likely to do the thing. So you get this kind of virtuous cycle of it costs more, which means that as an ethical business owner, I want to deliver more. So we improve our service and we have money to actually put into the service and doing a quality service. Because the client's invested more there, well, I don't want to waste this money, so I'm actually going to come to the gym. I'm actually going to listen to your lifestyle and nutrition coaching, and therefore they actually get the result at the end of the thing, and then stay with you long term. So, and also it also means that you've got some cash to invest in your marketing, because what we're trying to do with that front end is you're trying to amortize the cost of your marketing and get it all paid up and done for you within those first couple of weeks, ultimately. So the cost per lead, your investment in FMA and ads and everything, you can easily cover that and still make profit just from those first sort of 6 weeks, can't you? And then the members you keep afterwards, your recurring revenue, when you start to think about that, the numbers are just totally, it's a total no-brainer.
Yeah, and with an offer like £7 for 7 days, it's going to be near impossible to break even, let alone
You lose
get profit for a customer that comes through the door.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to rely on the back end. But the actual problem with that is that you have so much volume that so many people are going to drop off that you're missing out on so much opportunity as well from having a low cost. So although it may seem like a good idea, it goes back to that opportunity cost. Like you think it's a low barrier offer and it'll work, but actually it's going to cost you a lot of money in the short run or in the short term, but also the long term there as well. So your current front end offer is a, what is it again?
A 6-week reboot, basically, or so reboot for the larger group and a 6-week foundation for the small group.
And how much is that front end offer?
Large group 349, small group 449 currently.
And what was the price about 12 months ago?
299.
And then maybe 6 months ago or so?
Yeah, so we went 299 to 349, and then in the last few months, probably 3 months ago, up to 449.
And this is the key question after this, because there's debates on a high ticket front end offer, a lower one for volume. What's the sweet spot? Have your conversion rates changed from increasing the price?
Don't think so.
Yeah,
nothing that.
So that's awesome, basically, because you're pretty much getting nearly double the amount of income from the get go. So you're going to profit more. You can put more into marketing, and you can also focus on delivering a better service to those individuals there.
There's a big mental switch that I made at some point along the process to that, and because what I was doing previously was saying, oh, well, more than 20% of people that I'm pitching to are saying no. And therefore, that somewhere I'd heard that, well, that must mean that your price is either as high as it's going to get or too high. And so I was letting that keep the price down, both for the front end and your monthly recurring membership.
So because 20% of people that you were pitching were saying
at
no.
least 20% were saying no.
So were you converting 80%?
No, that makes it sound like we're way better than we were. But, just in the back of my mind, there was this sort of
if
number.
it's 20% or more that are saying no, your prices are maxed. That was
pretty much something along those lines, yeah. And at some point, I started to think about, but hold on, like, of the people that have said yes, would they pay you more? So don't worry about the people that say no. They would say no, whether it was 149, 249, 349, 449, 999. Whatever the price is, if it's not 39 quid a month or pure gym price or whatever, there's a portion of people that are going to say no. Don't let those no's stop you charging the right amount for the people that would say yes. Because the people that would say yes at 149, 249, 349, 449, 549, 649. Obviously, there probably will come a point where there is a top, but it's not where I was. And so actually, once I got that mental shift right, and then the confidence just to try it and see what happens, you go, oh, we're still selling just as many, now 50% more than it was 6 months ago. And actually, we'll go up again. We'll go 499 and just start kind of pushing it up periodically.
And I've heard this from a number of people that have done this successfully, where they've just increased their front end offer and also their back end for new people, and it's not affected the conversion rate. Because there's I mentioned this just a couple minutes ago, but there's some people that do a very high ticket offer of £1,000 for an initial, whether it's 90 days or whatever it may be. And that's all well and good that you'll get extra cash. But what would happen in some of those cases is then your sales would half or even less. And then you're then going to get less volume that would then convert onto your back end. And then all of a sudden that's going to cause some problems. But if you can creep up your price or even just jump it up and the conversion rate or volume doesn't change, then it's just a win-win situation, essentially. There's no harm whatsoever in increasing that price. A question I have for you is, a lot of people they might have fears or reservations, a little bit like you did, but they might go, oh, can I charge $449 for 6 weeks of training? Is our service good enough? Like, did you ever have those hesitations at all?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of that being an ethical business owner piece of, like, I actually do want to deliver a really good product, and you need to be confident that what you're delivering is up to scratch, that you are genuinely putting the time in, you're genuinely delivering a good service, that the environment, the gym is of a high standard. Yeah, because you can only, sell rubbish once. Maybe you get them in, but you would get a poor retention rate out of the back end if that was, the case. So there's definitely, we always have to think about that. But assuming that you are constantly trying to improve your product as well, then it's just a sensible thing to be doing, trying to charge more for it.
And I think a really great takeaway from this section, because what you've just talked about can make every gym owner listening extra thousands every single month, essentially, is increase your front end and just test what the volume and conversion rate is. And if it remains the same, then you're on to a winner. And then you potentially, as you've done, do it again and test, because you could test a higher price point and it could either work or not. And then you can just go back. So there's no harm done really in testing these price points and having this variation. So many people in the industry are, locked on really low prices. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and they charge £90 a month. It's a CrossFit gym, but they haven't raised their prices in 3 years. So I said to him, it's not really £90 though, is it? In terms of what it was and to what it is now. And there's such a fear to raise their prices. And I want every gym owner to be paid well. But at that price point, it's going to be really, really hard to be able to hit those numbers. So what would you say to anyone that is struggling or has a fear of raising their prices, essentially?
It'll be fine. Because I've absolutely struggled with it over the years. And we put the prices up I was the same sort of thing where I tried to keep current members' prices the same forever. So since they joined, basically, it's kind of almost like a reward for being a loyal member. I'll never put your prices up, even if I do put it up for new members, which we had been doing. But what that did is you create this big gap between where the new members are paying and what the old members are paying. So finally, at the start of this year, I kind of sent out a letter to our more long-standing members, basically kind of, if you joined before this date, and granted it was like 18 months ago or something, where we'd been a bit more, we'd put the prices up in that period. But if you joined before this period, I've tried to not put the prices up, and I've tried to just, grow the gym through newer members, but that's just not viable in the current economic circumstances. Like, that is not a good strategy. So I can no longer make up for having very low memberships by trying to outgrow the problem up here. Like, we've got to put your membership, I put it up 9%, which is not, it was sort of a number that I, to be honest, just sort of picked out of the air a little bit, but no one left. You put that price up, no one left. Of course, occasional grumbles and few, but most people are like, well, yeah, I get it. It's fine. I love the gym. I wouldn't go anywhere. So yeah, I'll pay a bit more.
And going back to this, we talk about the opportunity cost. These people that are paying a lower price, one, they're not paying as much, but then what's the loss of if those people were filled up on the regular price there as well, right? So, so it's so important that those people do eventually get a price increase, because also everything else within the gym that you pay for has gone up within the last 18 months, right? Your electricity bill,
staff costs,
absolutely everything's gone up. But again, the business owner really hesitates to increase their own costs, whereas everything else in their life has gone up apart from the cost that they charge for their service. So I really do believe everyone should get paid for what they do, because you put in a huge amount of work, and having super low prices is, unless you've got a massive amount of volume, is not going to be able to get you there. So 449 is your front end offer. And then what's just quickly remind me of the back end there?
So that's for the small group. So your back end would be between $199 and $299 a month, just depending on the specifics of the package you go for.
And run me through, so I sign up to your 6-week program. What is different within this 6 weeks than the continuity program, let's say? Like, when I sign up to you in that 6-week program, what am I going to experience? And also be good to know, what's the current front end to back end conversion rate?
So the current front end to back end historically is sort of around 55 to 60%.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, is a bit lower than we'd like. That is something we're sort of continually trying to work on and figure out and improve. So, but in terms of what's the difference, broadly, there's not a lot of difference. We want to keep the quality. So when someone comes in, they get that initial one-to-one sit down, they get the goal set in the 3D scan. They have a weekly, the idea is we obviously check in with them weekly outside of the gym in terms of through our app and through messaging. They're coached in sessions. We keep socials, trying to have some socials in the calendar to kind of keep people interested, and they train with us on average 3 times a week is the plan.
And you mentioned that it's not where you want it to be at the moment, and you want to kind of move it up a bit. Are there any areas that you've identified that potentially need to be improved on or work on, or is there a challenge that you find that you're facing that you're looking to overcome?
It's a good question. Right? We're always, so, you have your coach development meetings every week, where we're always trying to improve our coaching craft. We're always trying to improve the programming and make sure it's delivering, it's engaging, it's successful. We're always trying to have socials in the calendar for something for a long-term perspective. We're trying to add in the 3D scans and get that objective tracking data and set timelines towards that. So, we haven't sort of nailed in on kind of, exactly what's going to improve that beyond it, just gradually making sure we improve the consistency of the things that we're doing. And it's not just, well, I can list off those things that we've done, but if you said, have you done them consistently, every week for every client that comes in, that's probably a bit of the hole there, to be honest, is making sure it's a system and it's consistent and no one falls through the cracks.
Yeah. And then of the core members that you have, do you know what the kind of attrition rate is on a monthly basis?
3%.
Okay, nice. Awesome. And kind of same question, and it might be a similar answer because you've mentioned that the product is consistent throughout. Like, what is it you're doing to ensure that you have this level of retention?
So beyond everything I just sort of talked about, which are, those important, almost like leading actions, if you've got a good program that's engaging and a timetable that people can get to, and coaches that are available to support the members and actually care about them, and and a good social element that means that people draw a lot of extra value from being a member than just beyond the sessions. If someone's social life is a big part of the gym, then they're more likely to stay. Then there's the kind of almost the back end of that, which is actually what happens when someone's struggling, when someone reaches out maybe to cancel or change. So it's making sure that back end process is good as well. So, that looks like, our head coach will, sit down, or, or at least try and sit down with everybody that sort of sends that cancellation email to really get to the bottom of why is it you're cancelling? And actually, is it something that we can solve for you and keep you in the system?
Yeah, because potentially when people hand their notice, a lot of the times it's not the reason they may initially give. Like they might say, oh, I just can't afford it or something like that. But actually, a lot of the time it's just they've probably fallen out of rhythm of training and that habit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Affordability is like, I don't know if it's just in England, but it's the culturally acceptable way to back out of any situation. I can't afford to go on holiday with my mates. I can't afford to go to the pub. I can't afford to keep this gym membership up. But actually, all that's happened is that the value proposition has just dropped the wrong side of the coin for that person. For a long period of time, most of the time, this is the case anyway, for a long period of time, they were more than happy to spend that money, and it was an investment. And something's happened where it's now become a liability, and they're just going to try and adjust that balance sheet. And so it's kind of figuring out what is it that's changed. And obviously, in some cases, they have just been made redundant. They are leaving the area. They, are, pregnant and about to have a baby. Like, there are meaningful, real reasons why it's either not affordable or they can't stick with it. But often it's just they have stopped drawing as much value, and they are maybe just reaching out for a bit of help to rebuild that value.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how you phrase that. The value proposition has just gone on the other side, essentially, because they were paying that same amount every single month, and then suddenly something's happened. And of course, there are those logistical circumstances where someone is literally moving out of the area. But I've had conversations where people go, oh yeah, not many people leave. And when they do, it's always for, and the reason they give is like, they're almost giving themselves a pat on the back reason, as in like, we've done a great job, they're leaving because of this. But a lot of the time there is, as you've just been speaking about, another reason of why they're actually leaving. They're not giving you the full picture. And it's that value proposition that has kind of shifted.
Yeah. And it might be, there's an insidious creep of a dozen little things that might be that problem. It might be that there's never enough loo roll in the toilets. That they get bored of the program, or they don't feel like the coach is working with them specifically, and they just focus on their little clique of people over here, and then there's a handful of people over here that never get input. Or it might be the one of the liabilities of having a smaller kind of coaching setup, and you hear about it all the time, is people fall out, relationships go awry, things like that. So But actually, one of our first questions when someone sort of sends that thing is, like, how have you been doing? When you get in the gym, do you enjoy it? And the answer is almost always, yeah, like, I really do. But, work's really busy or this, that, or the other. And I'm like, okay, well, have you achieved the goals that you set out for? And if they're like, oh, well, I had, but I've fallen off it a bit. Okay, well, why did you fall off it? And you can kind of go down that route and build them back in.
Yeah, and the question could be, if in the last 2 months you were coming in more, do you feel like you'd be getting more of what you wanted? And then they probably go, yeah, okay, great. Well, what if we put a plan together to actually get you in a little bit more? And if it works, great. If not, and a lot of times they'll probably go, yeah, sure, I'm willing to give that a try. It's that a little extra bit of attention for that person needs to get them back on track.
Yeah, exactly. And we've all been there. We've all, been that person, and you're just sort of reaching out for help, but you don't necessarily know how, and then you start to think about other ways you could spend the money, and it just sort of drifts off that way. But actually, the thing you want is still the thing you want, and if there is a good process for it in an environment that you're already in, then yeah, they just need to be shown that path again, basically.
And that's another really good point. The human desire of whatever that person wants is still and always there. Like, their desire might shift towards something, but that they still want something. Like, they're not leaving because they don't want to be fit or healthy or look good or feel good or anything else. There is something else that's happened that's got in the way of that. But fundamentally, they still want that thing. That's still there. It's just something that's happened within your service that has made them feel less confident that you can help with that moving forward.
Yeah, exactly right. They're not getting that buzz, that self-actualization type thing, where someone feels like they are fit, strong, confident, part of a good social group, valued and progressing. If all your members feel like that, they'll stay forever. If one of those things starts to fall off, then you start to have more problems.
And I have it next door at Madison's, where the coaches will ask me, like, hey, what goals have you got in place for, like, fitness? I know you did this thing maybe a few months ago. What have you got in place now? And then I'll be having the conversation and I'll be going, oh, I haven't really got anything, but I've been thinking I want to do this. And it just gets the ball rolling. Now, I'm not actually sure if that's like a tactical thing that they've been told to do, but it sounds like potentially it is, in terms of planting the next step of what the goal is they're going to achieve and having that conversation with your clients. Because if they just stay on maintenance, some people want to make some sort of progress to make them feel like they're doing well. So having that little conversation is helping those clients set a new goal and move towards a new target, and then you can help them get there.
Yeah, if someone doesn't see, they run out of runway with you. If someone doesn't see they've got an attractive future, then they start to fall off. So yeah, that's that part of the process, is like, let's make sure we're continually refreshing a kind of compelling and exciting future for all the members to help them stay on track. And maintenance sometimes is the best short-term future you can create for someone. But if equally you can help push the timeline out a little bit longer, then you'd be able to find something that kind of keeps them interested. And that's where we find, like, the socials, whether that's obviously fitness competition's the easy one. Like, if you've got a fitness competition in, there will be a batch of your members that are going to do that. But equally, it might be a walk, it might be a coffee, it might be the Christmas social, it might be a picnic, it might be a holiday they've got, it might be a wedding, it might be all these different things. But having that, in the calendar is going to improve their experience and results.
And that's a great point, because the runway isn't necessarily a fitness goal, right? Because there's some people, as you mentioned, that are going to be happy to maintain maybe the lifers or maybe the older demographic who don't want to do some big fitness event. But the runway can be those social events. Oh, we've got this thing going on at Christmas. We've got this walk that's going on there. That's the runway for them. It's a social thing to look forward to rather than a fitness or physical goal that they achieve. I mentioned coaches. So just to move on to that. So how many coaches do you have in the team?
Literally just hired one last week, and we had two that were sort of finishing before that. So there's me, 2 full-timers and 2 part-timers now.
Nice. And in terms of leadership, has that been a difficult thing to adjust to throughout your time running a gym, or has it come quite naturally to you?
It's definitely, it's probably not a natural thing for me, to be honest. I'm a bit boxed away sometimes. I'm a bit just focus on my own stuff. And I think definitely getting back into the building more often, being with the coaches more often, sharing information, more coach development is definitely something that I've been trying to work on much more over the last few months and recent history to basically improve my sort of abilities with that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a process there. Has there been challenges in the past in terms of kind of staff churn and lessons that you've learned to make sure that people stay for longer or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think we always kind of keeping on track of how your goals and that staff member's goals align is really important. If you assume that someone is just happy and trucking along, and maybe you don't, in the same way with a member, but you maybe don't check in with them that often, you don't give them a formal and clear opportunity. And I found asking, very upfront and straight questions with a genuine intention to understand them and learn. If you don't do that, you come a cropper. That's when you get the sort of surprise notice that comes in. Whereas if you sit down in a quarterly meeting and say like, right, how are you doing? Where do you want to be in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years? Is the current timetable working for you? Is there anything that you need more of? Some of the stuff. I'm with the FBDA with Nikki Segal and Kev is my sort of business coach, and he's saying like, ask your coaches like, do you value time, money, or freedom? Like, is there one of those that's a big driver for you right now, and how can I help you get to that? So yeah, things like that I think are an important part.
And to help, so essentially, and I remember as you were saying that, FBDA kind of a light bulb went off in my mind, because I remember someone else from FBDA referencing this as well, essentially helping your staff achieve their goals, whatever they may be. And even if the goal, let's say for them long term, isn't actually inside, like, can your business help fulfill their lifestyle and their dreams within that? But even if you understand what their goal is and it's actually not in your gym, but they say in a year's time or 2 years' time, I want to go and do this thing, then you don't get that sudden notice, because it's not that staff churn is obviously an issue, but the worst thing is getting the shock notice that you didn't expect happen, and then you have to quickly find someone. Whereas one, if you can help your coaches achieve what they want to through the business, they're going to stay for a really long time. But even in a situation where you can have an open, honest conversation, they say, I want to do this in the future, you can then actually have some runway and prepare and let them move on in a really great way while someone comes in, and it's not this shock. Because that's the worst thing, right? Getting two coaches notices in 1 month. That's the worst thing you can ever have. And but if you actually nurture them, help them achieve what they want to, that's much less likely to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And those two coaches that left, one moved to New Zealand, and another one, he was a physiotherapy student, and so he graduated and has got a great role as a physiotherapist. So we knew those were coming,
and that's not a good thing to
yeah, exactly right. Those are timelines. And there's other times where a coach moved to South America, but I knew about that for 6 months prior, because we were sitting having like a weekly coffee that we just got into a cadence of doing, and across chatting he started talking about it. I'm like, so are you telling me that you're moving to South America in the summer? And he's like, yeah, I think I am. I'm like, okay, right, great. We've got plenty of timeline to figure that out. No problem at all type thing.
Yeah, rather than just being handed a letter, essentially, this is happening in a month. Yeah, that's much better to know, right? So, yeah. And then working with FBDA, so they've helped you with things like team, and what else have they helped you with?
The big reason I went with them was their sort of financial and numbers-oriented approach versus telling you exactly, throw everything out, do it like this type thing. They take a more of a kind of I'll say holistic, if that's the right word, but they basically take a more like, okay, let's break down exactly where you're at right now. Let's look at all your kind of percentages across your operational expenses, your staff expenses, your owner comp, net profit, and things like that. And let's go through all the numbers in the business and line those up, and then form a strategy based on that, which was, what I felt I needed, that whole sort of financial prudence model, learning a bit about my own personality of like, I think I'm going to continue making the same mistakes here until I actually invest in a coach that's going to guide me through improving it.
And that's really an aspect that they really specialize is the finances, and you understanding your numbers and you being able to forecast cash flow and just really have a grip on it, because most gym owners it doesn't come naturally to them, right? But what they will do is they will wait for the meeting with their accountant for them to be told how they're doing. And then some people, which I think is a pretty big mistake, is like the accountant giving them business advice. They say, you should cut, because they just see a number. They go, you should cut this, you should cut that. And the gym owner, because they have no financial literacy, they will take them on their word because they're the authority. But an accountant isn't a business owner. Well, they might be, but they're not entrepreneurial. Like, they haven't got an entrepreneurial mindset, essentially. So the way they think isn't the way most businesses grow. But if you have your own grip on your finances and you can see the full picture, then you can actually make decisions for what you want from the business.
Exactly right. Exactly. And accountants are inherently obviously pessimistic and cautious. They need to be. There's a lot of regulatory things they have to manage and give good advice. So yeah, that's understandable. And then, as a business owner, you're probably inherently over optimistic, and it's like when you go shopping, it's always okay to buy more gym kit, more, shoes, t-shirt, whatever, because that is for the inherent good of your health and your fitness. In the same way, as a business owner, buying more equipment or something like that is always justified in your mind because, well, it's for the members, the gym looks better, it's good. But actually, we probably need to be more diligent about exactly where you're investing your money and getting the whole back end of the finances of the business structured properly, so that when you do come to invest in your, obviously, facility, because that is important, it's from a position of the facts and what's going to generate growth and what's money that you've got and you're definitely going to be able to afford, versus taking on another lease payment for something that just cuts your legs out. Because, having no financial stability, you just don't make good decisions. That's not a position that we want to be in.
And the worst thing is if you don't have a grip on it yourself, a lot of the time these sudden bills or payments can come through. Maybe the accountant emails you and says, you've got to pay this tax bill in the next week or two that you weren't expecting. All of these issues can arise. But when you've got a grip on everything and you can actually see what's going on, you can literally forecast and predict everything that's coming through. So it makes life much easier. It's a very, let's say, kind of unsexy subject, but actually it builds the sexiest businesses.
Oh, exactly. Being profitable is sexy. Like, having money in your back pocket is sexy. So absolutely. Like, we've all been there, and you get a big old VAT bill or a tax bill or unrelated, totally, because we're in a shopping centre, we got a massive bill for service charge because they'd calculated the service charge wrong. Things like that. If you've got money in the bank, those are not that stressful. If you haven't, they are.
Something else is that you've been, in the industry for over 15 years. A lot of people that have been in the industry as long as you might think, I don't need mentorship. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. What's your mindset on that and getting help?
Yeah, I've been there and I've had that mindset, definitely. But you don't know what you don't know. You think you know everything, but you don't know that you don't know a lot of things either. And to be honest, the crux of it will come down to the cost of the problem will, outweigh the cost of the solution at some point in your mind. And it's normally you get backed into a corner so bad that you're finally prepared to invest in getting a solution. And at that point, you kick yourself. I would just wish I'd made this investment earlier. But at that point, you think you know everything. It's trust the fact that you don't know a lot of stuff, and actually reaching out and getting some support is probably going to save you a lot of pain and improve your progress.
And something you said there is really interesting is that typically people will take action when their back's in a corner. And with the FBDA, a number of people that go to them from us, for instance, the reason they're prompted to go is because something happens and they're in a bad situation and they now need to get a grip on their finances. Where actually, if they had come from but then when people are in a good spot, they don't think they need to do anything because everything's dandy. I can just be on cruise control and it's absolutely fine. Where actually that's probably a good time for you to strengthen your situation, because then you'll never get into one of those dips, or hopefully won't anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, if we could have that foresight, as a population of people, 100%. Like, it's like they say, hire staff when you don't need them, because you'll hire the right person, versus hiring someone when you're desperate to find someone. You'll hire any person and you'll rush them in. So yeah, that's exactly it. If we can, invest a specific portion in continual coaching and development when you don't need it, then you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble.
Rather than retention being really low, and you go, I need to invest in the coaches. You actually do it from a place of strength, so you don't ever get into that situation, essentially. Something topic we forgot to discuss was sales. So what is your sales process? Is it a one call close?
Broadly, yeah.
Yeah, and that is, so 449 over the phone.
Yeah. So we, and obviously you're a human when you're on the phone. And if it's like 449 or nothing, of course you will get less sales than if you're prepared to be a bit sensible about it all. So we'll always start with a kind of it's 449. We normally just take those details and process that payment now. Should we go ahead and do that type thing? And you'll get a percentage of people that go, yeah, no problem. And it's perfect. You get some that go, and you go, okay, no problem. Is there anything that you're specifically worried about with that? It's like either, well, I don't get paid until this day. Okay, well, no problem. Should we do a deposit? We can split it in half. We can do a £50 deposit. You can pay the balance when you're here in person. You just got to be sensible about it. And of course, there will always be people that are trying to fob you along, or they know they want to say yes, but they can't say yes, but they won't say no either. But yeah, broadly 449 over the phone. In totality, hasn't been any harder than 299 or 199.
Sell to the person that's in front of you. So, for example, if it was you have to buy through the phone or nothing. I'm sure there's a large number of sales that wouldn't have happened because some people don't want to give their payment information over the phone, which is understandable. So, if that's the situation, you'd be like, oh, no problem. Do you want to come into the gym and you can cover everything there?
Exactly, because some people have been scammed. Especially the older demographic, where we've had a really good run of sales for our over 50s program, the small group program. And there's people that are like, look, I'm really cautious about this. I'm not sure. I have been scammed, a few months ago. Is it okay if I come in and meet you in person first? Yeah. Okay, great. Of course. Because at that point, pushing any harder to try and make a sale on the phone is just going to push them away. You're guaranteed a no, because they're not going to give you those details. So you say, yeah, no problem. Let's book a time and we can come in. Can you come in today, tomorrow? And then that older demographic typically does what they say they're going to do. And then, they turn up, that afternoon or the next morning and pay in person just when they've validated that you are in fact real. You are there. There's other people like them, and they'll sign up.
And did you ever have any skepticism about selling that much over the phone in terms of thinking, is this possible? Because you didn't always sell over the phone, right?
No. Yeah. So we've been selling over the phone for a long time now, for probably 9 years, 10 years. I had a business mentor in 2015-ish that sort of taught us that process. And so, from that point, we've been pretty much selling over the phone. But yeah, of course, like at different times in that period, you kind of hear a message of, anything over 200 is a bit hard to sell, so maybe keep it under 200. But it's just people you're talking to, isn't it? Like on the phone. For some people, spending 20 quid over the phone is unachievable, but for some, they would throw $2,000 at you. So you just got to be sensible. You've got the right price point. You've got to, if yes, take bill. If not yet, book into session, and just, follow your little tree of things to do to get a sale.
The topic I want to move on to is your kind of last year. So the business has, you kind of run through elements of how we've grown the business. We got it to a good spot. And then last year you decided to take some time out.
Yeah.
How long did you take out of the business?
So it started with sort of 9 months earlier. So at the end of 23, I guess I was like, I'm taking August off. That was the sort of start of the process. I'm like, I'm still having other holidays, but I am not here in August. So there's a timeline to try and get everything up and running so that the gym was running without me by that point. And that meant that sort of from probably April that year, I was starting to become sort of supernumerary, like not doing that much around the place. We had a head coach. We had a coach that we were sort of training up in sales and then the other members of the coaching team. So I basically had a year August totally off, and a year where I maybe did like 3 hours a day.
And what was the motivation behind taking that time off?
I felt like I wanted it, / needed it. I felt like I'd been sort of hard charging for a decade, and really just wanted a bit of a step back. And just it seemed like the next sensible step of kind of, I've been doing this, but I've got coaches that want to progress and step up. They want more salary, they want more responsibility. To a certain degree, the way that they can get that is if I step out of roles and give them that freedom. And that way, if I get more freedom and they get that progression they're looking for, then that seemed like the next sensible step.
And what happened to the business in that time? Because it didn't go backwards, did it? It just kind of plateaued a little bit?
Yeah, that's fair to say. So we still grew,
Okay.
We, in terms of gross revenue, so we grew by 9 or 10%. Over the year, which is not terrible, but it's also not very exciting either.
Because before it was
30%.
Yeah,
the year before we'd grown by 30, and that was kind of part of what was informing my decision. Was, well, we've grown by 30%. We can project out maybe 20% growth, even if what I thought I was being a bit sort of cautious about, and it ended up being 10%, and not because of any of the coaches and the work they were doing. It's more just I sort of came to realize that just by being in the building, there's certain things that I do that generate more revenue and sort of speed up the growth, basically.
But for the business still to have some growth without you in it is testament to the business and product and service that you've delivered, because it still did grow despite you not being there. But obviously you are the main driver of growth within the business, just like you have been for all of that time. How did you find the time off?
Boring. So, my plan was kind of take a year, I'll train loads, I'll basically, train sort of 9-10 sessions a week type thing, train loads. I'll do the work that needs doing. And I kind of assumed that I'd sort of step into other roles and find a bit of growth in those areas that were as yet unknown. But the reality was that I just stopped really producing much, and so it basically didn't feel productive. By the end of the day, I'd done a few bits. You end up getting all the dregs of the work that either can't be dealt with or no one wants to deal with. So you get the kind of a bit of the rubbish end of the work. So kind of after a year of doing that, realised that actually not working is not what I want.
Yeah. And you actually enjoy being in the gym and working. And so what does a typical week look like for you kind of as the gym owner now?
So Mondays I typically work from home, get up, I've got a home gym, so I'll train early and then do the school run. Then drop, once the kids are dropped off, basically Monday I'm then trying to blast out a lot of that kind of more important work that I can just quietly and sit down to at the laptop, the emails to the mailing list, the strategy things, preparing presentations for the coaches and the coach development and, working through the things that sort of drive the business. So I'm trying to kind of get a big chunk of that done on Monday. The head coach is fantastic. So he is looking after the gym on site then, and he does a meeting with the coaches on a Monday just to check on the members and all that sort of stuff. And then typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the rest of the week, I am in the gym. I still do the school runs pretty much. I do like 8 of 10 school runs, but and then I'll do the last couple of months where we've had a lot of coach holidays. I've been doing more coaching, and that's something that while you let yourself believe that you don't want to coach anymore, but actually, when you get back into it, you're like, this is brilliant. This is like the best bit of the job. So what I'm trying to figure out now is how do I still keep that buzz from coaching, but what I value is still the freedom to choose to work on the things I want to work on. And so just navigating that is the tough thing.
And I think that narrative of not being on the gym floor at all probably goes back to when we spoke about this. It's the same, let's say, ego of wanting multiple locations. There's a statement with being a gym owner of I don't do any coaching on the gym floor, and that is like a statement to show everyone the business that they've built. But actually, as you said, everyone who builds a gym, or most people, get into it because they actually really enjoy training people. So to be able to still do that and enjoy it is a win in my eyes anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%, because that's what we do it for. That's what we're really good at. And then we trip ourselves up into being desk jockeys at some point. That seems successful. But to be honest, what we probably all do is we all hire coaches too quickly when we should be hiring operational people. We should be hiring, the administration assistant to take out that 20% of work that absolutely kills you so you can still do some coaching. But also, we probably, I'm 39, kids, that sort of stuff, coaching all the earlies and all the lates is not what I'm looking for either. So it's just figuring that out, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want to be doing, as you mentioned, from 5 in the morning till 9 in the evening, all the late sessions. You still want to do some sessions, but just dramatically reduce hours where you can still dip in and touch base with the community.
Yeah, and the members love it, and I love it. So yeah, it's definitely something that I want to keep in there more often now.
Mm. And of course, it's everyone has their own preference. There might be some people that actually want to be off completely, which is fine, just have the business sustain. But there's other people that actually like coaching. And I guess the reason I brought it up is that there's nothing wrong with actually wanting to enjoy coaching, because that's why you got into the business.
Yeah.
What is next for the business for you? What, in terms of goals, plans, challenges are on the horizon for you? What's next for you?
Well, we're trying to fill up, I guess, the current location is the primary goal. The longer I am out of shutting the old gym and that sort of stuff, the more multiple sites starts to kind of creep onto my agenda again. But prior to that, it's let's make sure that this one facility is a proper business, i.e. has a reliable return, profit. I'm 39. You want a pension. You want exciting things like that. You want to actually get to the end of the year, move a big chunk of money into your pension. So, and you want a team that's excited and keen to grow, and you're helping them, progress their lives as well. So, yeah, the initial target is basically if we've got 60 members in the small group, get to 100 members. If we've got just shy of 200 in the large group, get to 250 members in those. As soon as possible, basically.
And the gym now versus the gym in Poole, I imagine much better setup and systems in terms of being able to actually now have a second location, and it be, one, for the right reason as well, but two, have the right foundations in this business to replicate into the next.
Yeah, exactly right. More efficient, better organised, more repeatable. Whenever you double, if you get another facility, any cracks you've got are going to open up. And that's part of the process. But yeah, it's definitely a better setup now.
Amazing. Well, Russell, thank you for being on the podcast. And it's been great for us to play a part in your journey and helping you with the marketing to be able to increase membership. And we're going to continue to move in that direction. And yeah, thank you for being part of FMA, and thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And yeah, you guys do a great job. It does work. So yeah, thanks for your part in that, and all the other bits you do as well in terms of the mastermind and, just creating opportunities to chat to other gym owners. All that sort of stuff is really important for just your long-term growth and, your mindset as well, basically.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.